good to see you though. How you been?
Oh, hanging in there. Yeah, just hanging in there. Nothing terribly exciting. It's a struggle, but it's fine.
Yeah, yeah, I know how that is. 100%. Like most eventful things happened to me is my chud aunt died.
Yeah, I've been hearing about that. I'm gonna move my camera, I think,
Yeah,
over this way.
it's it's a very it's a weird feeling. It's a very weird feeling, But you know, try not to worry about it too much. You know, uh, I guess I just don't really spend much time thinking about it right now because what can I do? Except for be there for my uncle who I actually like. So I don't know. Just a little aside. Um,
I
but
think I
yeah.
had a really similar situation with my grandpa.
Hmm.
He wasn't. Well, I really don't know what he was politically, but he wasn't a very good guy. Um, and so I definitely relate to that. In a way.
Yeah. It's like well, the thing that really bothers me about Lindsay Ellis no longer uh, making videos on the internet. She did that really good video about uh, Guardians of the Galaxy 2 and tied it together with losing her dad to Parkinson's and
Ooh, that
how
sounds intense.
yeah she talked about how like Parkinson's really changed her dad, um like the way that he acted and everything, and it became like uh, he became more of a difficult person to be around because of the mental effects of Parkinson's, and it
Right.
complicated their relationship. And she talks about how the theme of that movie is family, um, and that they use the example of someone like Yandu as an example of like a complicated father figure who has a past of like abuse and stuff like that. Um, that complicated the relationship, but he was there for Star Lord. So yeah, so it was yeah. Thinking back to that, like it's very weird. It's very complicated. Like she got worse as she got older, though. Um, she was
Was it all?
always
Did I miss that? Was it also Parkinson's?
no. We
Okay.
I still don't know what happened. Like none of us know. We just know that like we know she went in for a procedure to correct a uh, correct a an arrhythmia, and she was fine after that. And I can't. I think it was like a month ago that she got that, and then I guess my cousin uh, who lives with her found her. My uncle wasn't even home, and like that's all I know.
Wow.
Yeah. Official People's Party is saying hi. Yep.
Hey.
He's the originator of the People's Party. He had it stolen from him by Nick Branagh. That ilk turned into the party of grifters that we see before us.
Uh-oh.
Yeah. So, which topic did you want to talk about first?
Either or. Honestly, the general strike thing for me is more conceptual. Like I would never consider myself educated on all the ins and outs of it, but like from a more practical standpoint, um, as like just a human in the world that struggles, I have perspectives on that. Or the ADHD thing. I could talk about that all day.
Yeah, yeah, that'll probably be the longer portion of it since we're both ADHD. Yeah, I
So
appreciate
like
that.
dealer's choice.
I appreciate that, Jan. I'm gonna guess that recommendation came from you, and I appreciate that so much. You're awesome, amazing. Yeah, go ahead and hit that follow button. See more content from me Monday, Wednesday, Friday. Except for this week, my internet didn't work, so I had to cancel yesterday. Stupid Comcast. Whatever.
Worst.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, we were able to go and get his blood drawn early. My son's blood drawn, so and he's doing good. He's doing good. Oh my god, just everything happening all at once. Yeah.
I just don't understand what their damn business model is that they make. I mean, I guess I do get it, but making more money by making me have things that I don't need and don't have to pay for. Oh, we'll give you a free year of cable, but you have to take it. It must be
It,
it
it
must be that they count on people forgetting to cancel, because that's happened to me before.
it's one of those things where they own the pipeline and they have like mini monopolies in certain areas, like where I live. The choices that I have, oh, capitalism provides choices. Oh, sweet. My choices are Comcast or AT&T DSL, and you can't stream on AT&T DSL.
I used to live out in Oakland County, uh, near Oxford, and for the longest, or actually better yet, I used to work at the. I guess I won't dox myself, even though I don't live there anymore. But I used to work at a GameStop in the boonies, and this was like I want to say 2009, 2010, and by that point where I lived, we had high speed internet basically everywhere. But you went out to the boondocks, and it was there were people that were in disbelief that certain games required the internet to play. Like they would very often laugh at me and they'd be like, "That's ridiculous. Why would anybody make that? It doesn't make any sense that you need the internet." And lo and behold, and a lot of those people still don't have internet, so I need a goddamn haircut.
Sorry, I got
No, it's
my
fine.
wife's texting me. Hey, Lord, good to see you. Um, you listen to my suggestion, progressive ammo. I really appreciate it. I don't know if I've ever seen you buy either, so that's very much appreciated. Um, but yeah. No, I know the way the internet works in various areas is very interesting. Like a lot of people are like, oh, just get fiber, and I really wish I could, because fiber is a lot cheaper. And I've seen a number of even cable internet companies that are incredibly cheap, that just don't sell here. And instead, I'm paying like 120 a month, 150 a month for 1.2 gigs, and I mean that's the only way it can work because we run everything off the internet here. It's um, the Sesame Street that Eli's watching right now is streamed. Um, Everything else we watch
Yeah.
is streamed because we at the time we thought that that was the better financial decision. At the time, it was. We were
Yeah.
early cord cutters, but like now it's just it's getting really crazy. I really need to stop paying attention to chat. So guys, especially now that I have mods here, I'm not going to be paying as much attention to chat. I'm going to be paying attention to the interviewer. And don't worry, afterwards we'll hang out for a little bit and we'll cover some stories. So no worries. I didn't forget about you. I just my brain bouncing all over the place right now, and I'm trying to focus. Like I said, we both have ADHD, so in various
I made sure
forms.
to, I made sure to take my meds about an hour before I got on, so like I'm zooming, I'm good.
Right. Oh, we could talk about the general strike stuff later. Like that seems like a good segue to talk about the you know having ADHD. Um, Something near and dear to my heart. I was diagnosed uh, just a year ago in February.
Really?
hmm Didn't know I
Wow.
had it. Always, I kind of assumed for a few years, but I was never quite like sure. And then like the more I learned about it, the more I was like, oh my fucking god, like it just changed my life in a weird way. It's just be like, why don't we talk about this? Like losing jobs, losing friendships, so many opportunities lost in my life, and then I find out that it's all the complaints that these people had about me were related to a condition I didn't know I even had. I have the inattentive type, which is a lot more difficult to diagnose. Um, but yeah, my first question, if you don't mind sharing, what
Open
meds
book.
are you specifically taking for ADHD?
So I take, I forget. I know it's methylphenidate. Um, that's furosemide. Don't ever take that. Oh God. Methylphenidate. Yeah.
I think that's
Extended
Adderall.
release. Huh?
I think that's Adderall.
Yeah, it's the generic for Concerta, but they might be the same
Oh,
medicine.
oh,
They're
oh,
two
okay.
different brands.
Yeah,
But yeah, I
that's
take
right.
54 milligram extended release. So I take one in the morning, and then that lasts me pretty well all day. Unless I decide to drink, and then it blows the whole thing up in my belly, and you get really, really up, and then you crash. So we try not to do that.
Yeah, I didn't get the I didn't get the right feeling from Concerta. Like that's a weird thing about this condition is, you know, most mental health conditions you always got to find. I mean, it's true of any condition in the body and medication. You're going to have different medications do different things, and you're going to react to them in different ways. Mental health is far more finicky because I mean sometimes it can even boil down to meds not even being necessary at all. Stop,
Yeah.
stop, stop, bud. This is what I was talking about with me being interrupted.
Oh, it's okay. I got lots of patience,
That's good. Yeah.
especially for kids. It's
Eli,
fine.
Eli, stop. Go watch Elmo. Go watch Elmo. Go watch Elmo. Go hang out. Be cool.
I think
Oh boy.
the one of the biggest like pervasive things that has always really bothered me is people see the word meth like in the meds, and then there's that old argument of like, oh well, it's only one chemical away from, methamphetamines, and you're like, well yeah, but a million things are only one chemical away from something bad. it's, it's just it's a false a false comparison. And the other thing that really bothers me, and just kind of segueing into what you just said, is I think people think that all the meds are the same. So they think that like Ritalin and Adderall and Concerta and Wellbutrin and so on are all do the same thing. But as to your point, I can't take Adderall. It makes me not eat. I get like super bad hyperfocus, and I get really moody. And Ritalin was kind of similar, but I got more hyperactive. Concerta is the only one that's really helped, and I don't take Wellbutrin because uh, it's mixed, I believe, with antidepressants, and that messes with other my other situations.
Yeah. Yeah. Wellbutrin's an SSRI, so like that's a different classification entirely. It's like, oop, what's going on?
It's just my camera gets.
Oh yeah, you got to do the focus thing.
Yeah, I don't know
Yeah.
why it does that.
Yeah, like get your hand close and slowly take it back. That all of these cameras do that. Like you just kind of like go like this and then pull it back, and the focus will.
Ah ha ha! Oh no!
No, it's got worse. So you gotta get it at a focal point and then slowly pull it away back towards you, and bring your hand back by your face, and it'll adjust the focus as you go. See, there you go. There it
Now I
is.
know the trick. I never knew the trick.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that autofocus is a bitch. But also it helps when if you move around a lot, which ADHD, you know. Um,
Right.
but yeah, Wellbutrin's a SSRI, so it's a completely different classification entirely than like your Concertas, your like the big three. Vyvanse considered Adderall, and I think Ritalin might, because technically Concerta and Ritalin are very chemically similar. Like I think just the way it's extended release is what makes it different from Ritalin. No, bud.
It might be,
No,
yeah.
bud. Um, so you want to say hi? No, don't touch my phone. You want to say hi? Say hi. Hi. He was doing it all day yesterday, and now he just doesn't because he's moody. I don't even know why he's moody. Anyways, so yeah, like a lot of those drugs are considered stimulants, and Wellbutrin isn't at all. Like it might have that sort of like uplifting effect, but that's just because it increases the dopamine to the brain. It's a uh, long explanation that I can't remember all the way at this time. So,
That's all
oops.
right.
But
Again. Oh,
but yeah, it's definitely not the same thing, and a lot of people really do uh definitely do classify these things in a very very weird way. Um, but like the differences between different stimulants can be so extensive. The side effects and everything are way different. The way it works within your body can be way different. And you know, I own the meth thing as like a joke. You know, I just go ahead and say like,
sure.
"Yep, I'm on meth, whatever." But like, it's it's not like I'm on meth. It's just
Right.
yeah, it's very chemically similar. It's a stimulant. It can be habit forming, but it's not. I'm not taking it to get high. I'm taking it so that I am less of a scatterbrained moron. I guess I could say. Very self deprecating in that way.
It's, I think, in a lot of ways, and that especially when I was a kid, because we're roughly the same age. So when I was a kid, um, they just ran me through um as like a guinea pig, for a lot of the meds, and so it was like every 90 days or something for from the time I was 6 until I was like 9. They were just running me through all these different pill cycles, and I don't remember it actually affecting me that much, but I remember getting older and took them like through middle school, and kids were trying to buy them off me, and that coupled with some really really shitty propaganda from people in my family, I had decided at some point that I didn't want to take it anymore, and so when I was 14, I started just pocketing the pills in the morning and throwing them in the woods on my way to the bus stop.
Oh man.
Um, and what ended up happening is I got older. I started to see a psychiatrist again, and it was like a lot of internalized ableism because I was like, well, I don't need these pills to function because, that means that there's something wrong with me, and there's nothing wrong with me. So through therapy and everything, I wanted to go back on them, but what I hadn't realized is I had picked up, because I wasn't on the medication. I wouldn't say specifically because, um, but I had picked up a lot of really bad coping habits because one of the really insidious things about ADHD is your body knows something's wrong. It's why you're tapping around. It's why you need these fidgets, etc. Um,
Am I bouncing? Which I'm
yeah,
doing
and
right
I
now.
have I tap my foot all the time. That's why I don't put my arm on my leg because otherwise I'd just be going crazy. Um,
Yeah, I need to be careful not to hit my desk, otherwise my desk will shake. I have that problem upstairs a lot where I'll hit my desk because the way it's shaped is way different, and you can just see my camera shaking instead of just me shaking. And I just accept that I'm gonna be bouncing in the background, and I'll just try to make it easier for the people watching to not see me, shaking the whole fucking table.
Right.
But yeah, no, I totally know what you mean too. Um, it's like slightly, it's very similar to what I've dealt with, not knowing until I was well into adulthood that I had it. Um, just all my life, being told that I'm lazy, being told that I just don't care when I'm sitting there like really confused because I'm like constantly telling myself like I actually care a lot and it really bothers me that people think I don't care
Yeah.
when I know my feelings. I absolutely do. But so I definitely had to come up with a lot of coping mechanisms for that too that I'm now trying to sort of unlearn because I recognize now how they're unhealthy and how there's other ways to do it now that I know that there's this thing that I have. Um, Trying to think of some of the things that I do. A lot of shutdowns, anger is a big thing, especially in my family. My family's the boys, where we tend to hang on to a lot of our anger. I'm I'm convinced that my whole family has it, from my mom, my dad, and all my brothers. And my oldest brother is the only one that knows, and he's looking into it. Um, and he's in the process of possibly getting diagnosed too, because we had like long conversations about the different things. And I always try to specify. Oh, thank you for the follow. Trying to specify to people who are trying to get diagnosed or think they have it, they do that thing, oh yeah, I do that. Is It's one thing when it like happens every now and then to you, these like things where your mind just you forget things, you lose focus, you have like difficulty regulating your emotions, the hyper focus and all that. Um, but I always try to tell people because I want to caution people against just assuming they have it, and
Yeah.
assuming treatment. Um, I feel I know I've had some disagreements in chats about this. That official diagnosis I know is difficult in the U.S. because of how expensive it is, but yeah, I really caution people against just accepting you have it without knowing for sure, because if you pursue the treatments, um, you could be putting yourself through some, like let's say you jump right to Adderall and you're like, well, I can't get through a pharmacy, I'm going to get it off the street.
Yep.
Normally, if you're diagnosed, you know exactly, okay, so I'm doing this for this reason and it's going to have this effect on me. If you're not and you actually don't have it, what you're doing is taking Adderall and then possibly becoming addicted to it, not realizing it. So I always worry about that when I see
It,
people who are like, oh, self-diagnosis is valid too, and I'm like, I don't know, worries me.
I I have kind of a very similar stance, but like different. Is um if you come to me and you tell me like I have ADHD, and you say, oh, when did you get diagnosed? They say, well, I haven't. Hey, you know your body better than I know your body, so it's not going to be my place to tell you not to. And I fully understand the healthcare hellscape that we live in. Um, but what I would do is I often encourage people just to look for alternate routes. There's lots of programs that are not perfect, but what I try to emphasize with people is, ADHD has gotten lumped in with, people saying, "Oh, haha, I'm so ADHD. Oh, squirrel." Or, "Oh, I'm so OCD." Like it's sort of like this blanket like infantilization of these, like, what really are difficult to deal with um, neurodivergence.
Mm-hmm.
And so, what I try to tell people if they want to have a serious conversation with me about it is I say, okay, like, I hear you, you know your body. I don't exist in your body, so I trust you and I believe you. But you also need to understand we need to try to get this figured out for you. Because if you do have this, it's going to be totally life changing to get it figured out.
Mm-hmm.
This is something that I always hate to use the term debilitating, but it really is. I mean, it's completely cognitively debilitating.
Yeah.
Um, and
Yeah.
there are varying degrees, and like you said, it doesn't always have to be medication, but that's how I try to stress it to people is just like, okay, I trust you, I believe you. We need to figure this out for you,
Mm-hmm.
for your mental health.
I agree. I agree. Yeah. It's really, that's really difficult. Like, and that's the thing that I specified to my brother, and I do think that he probably has it. I do think that he probably has it. Um, but considering some of the struggles he's told me about, it's just I was a little reticent about accepting it because this brother is the one who's always been the more, I guess, successful one among us. Like, he's the only one of us who graduated from college so far. I'm in the process.
Right.
Um, and he's always had a career, and he hasn't had, he's had difficulty, don't get me wrong, but he's had far less difficulty uh, getting his life together than me and my middle brother. And I think my middle brother has it worse than all of us. He takes after my dad. He's got the full on uh, hyperactive version, um, that is not the type that I'm pretty sure my oldest brother has. I think the inattentive is probably what my mom has, and my dad leans more towards the hyperactive. Um, and to the extent that we got a varying form of both, um, it's it's it, it's it's difficult to say, but when you see somebody like somebody who's struggled because of these things all their life, and they find out 36 years old when I found out. And you see all my past difficulties, and I'm going back in my head like, God, this, it was because of this. This happened because of this happened
Everything.
because of this. Yeah, it's insane how much you look back, and it almost makes you angry that you didn't know, and it almost makes you angry that, um well, with my family, they were one of the ones that didn't really believe in it per se, or at the very least take it seriously as an actual
Yeah.
problem. Plus, I don't think my teachers thought I had it, so I don't think anybody recommended. They just kept going, yeah, I wish he would have, oh, he um, didn't, he is good in class, but I don't understand why he doesn't apply himself better. That's what is usually
So
said.
yeah.
Doesn't apply himself better. Um, and no one once thought for a second that, like, wait a minute, this is pretty uh this seems to be very common sort of behavior for people who have this condition. It's just a somewhat different form of it because he's not like bouncing off the walls. Um, you know, he's not lazy, but he's lazy. Uh, in that he gets easily distracted by various stuff that interests him, and wants to learn all that and wants to work towards all that, but the stuff that doesn't interest him, he just like, oh God. Like, math was a big thing for me. Can't stand it. I'm in a
Oh,
math class
same.
right now.
100%.
Absolutely killing me.
Too
I
many rules.
These are the notes for my math class. Like, and I asked my math tutor I know I'm going all over the place. I'm trying to
You're
arrive
fine.
at the final thing.
You're fine.
I asked my math tutor the other day because I told her that what I want to do with this math class is just get through it, get it done, know how to arrive at the answers rather than, dissecting it all. But like, I get to the point where I look at, um, I look at this math and look at what I'm doing, and I'm going, but what does this mean? Why? I feel like I would be doing better at it if I understood what it means. Um, so I was like, what is this like? Is this on a graph or something like this? Is like this modeling, knowing how to like model figures and design aspects and stuff like that. And like, oh yeah, it does this to the graph and blah 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 blah. But like, still, it's just like the how and the why of it all is hard to make the connection from what I'm interested in to what I'm doing. And that is something I think people don't understand is you have to, the way the ADHD brain works is making these certain connections to what interests you is key in us learning something. And I don't think my parents ever came to that conclusion. I don't think teachers came to that conclusion. And I would try to explain to them that this is how I learn things. This is why I can be, really good at stuff like art and English, not like drawing or anything, but like uh,
Right.
poetry, writing, stuff like that. And, very, very much a grammar Nazi and spelling Nazi. And, I care a lot about making sure that these things are correct. And I was always really good at it, testing at a higher level in school for English and literature most of the time. And then I get to something like math and I just glaze over and I can't get it because it's not connected to anything that I already understand and already like. And to them, that's not caring. But I physically cannot drive myself to to care enough to listen. And that sounds like just not giving a shit. And it's like,
You don't get a choice.
no.
Yeah, you literally don't get a choice. And I can sit there and listen to you, like I can look at you like this and I can nod along, but nothing, it's all going in here and then it's just going out. And it's again, like you said, it's not about not caring. It's my I literally cannot engage with this. It
Mm-hmm.
doesn't light up any of the centers that actually work.
Yeah.
you know, the rest of the road is under construction. I need you to merge for a minute so we can get back on the road.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And even then, like, even with stuff that you do care about, and this is where I want to sort of bridge it into like talking about being a creator and on the internet and having this, like, you
Well, you
could.
know what? I'm sorry. Before you do that,
Mhm.
do you mind if I use the restroom real quick?
Yeah, sure, go ahead.
I'm sorry. I hate to do it, but
No, that's
I'll
okay.
be right back.
All right, so we'll give that a second. Tom Hartman was so great. Work about how ADD ADHD was an evolutionary advantage in hunter-gatherer societies and how people can cope and succeed because of it. Yeah, yeah, it's so. Eventually, we're going to talk about like how society today is not built for us. Like it's really become it was really this sort of come to Jesus moment for me. I've lost so many jobs for being late, lost so many jobs for people thinking that I don't like them or that I'm being an asshole when I'm like dealing with something and I just shut down. My last job, I got in trouble because me and my direct coworker, my office mate, got into it, and I eventually, it's like, we got along when she first came over, and then something changed, and I keep going back to, and I have no confirmation of this. I have no idea how I'm going to get confirmation of this, but it started around the time that my parents were diagnosed with COVID, and I kind of shut down. Um, I kind of shut down emotionally and didn't really want to talk. Got really short. So I think she thought I didn't like her or something. So she just started getting a really shitty attitude with me, and it kind of boiled over. And I'm the one that got in trouble for having that boil over. And I don't think that ultimately cost me my job, but I think when it came down to them cutting the budget, I was the most expendable in that regard. And I've been through that a lot, even though I try to be good at my job. I get my work done. And even the way I look at work is seen as such a cold thing, because I just say, I just want to show up. I'm not looking to make friends here. If I make friends with you, cool. But I just want to show up, do my work, and go the fuck home and not think about it anymore. And I don't think people really understand that logic, even though to me that makes complete sense, because that's what jobs are supposed to be. you know. So like, yeah, we'll talk more about that later. Sorry, somebody just got me on a tangent about that in chat, about the differences
No,
between
I could
past
talk about very
society.
similar for a long time.
Yeah. Oh
Yeah,
yeah.
sorry about that, everyone. The second medication I'm on, it just takes your bladder and wrings it out like a wet washcloth.
Yeah.
So I should be good though.
Yeah. I know the reasoning behind that, and just I'm sure he doesn't want to share it. So just trust me. He has a good reason. But
Thank you.
yeah, of course. Okay, so here's where I wanted to kind of talk about, like, what we get into, because I run into this constantly. Have you promised uh, in your field? It's readers, my and you're getting into streaming, but been doing streaming for a minute, so my field, it's viewers,
Mhm.
where you're just like, I'm going to do this big grandiose thing. I'm going to plan it all out. I'm going to do it. And you just don't. how do you
Yeah, a million times over.
how do you deal with that?
I don't. I drink a lot. No, for real though. It's I just I just stopped promising. Is really what it comes down to. I found out that um and I don't know if everybody with ADHD suffers in this way. Um, but I have anxiety triggers where if I overpromise something, and I get to a position where I can kind of foresee that it's not going to happen, I just completely shut down. And I say, okay, screw that. I'm on to the next thing, and I just don't even go back to it. And so one of the ways that I learned to start to deal with that was just to um stop talking about stuff that I want to do. Unless it's more in the abstract. Like I might say I want to write a new I want to write a new comic book. And I might say something like that, but I'm not going to get into plans. I'm not going to get into dates. I think I posted the other day I want to do more Twitch fundraisers. And I do, but I didn't say what it was going to be for, when it was going to be, because if I do that without doing some more stuff on my end, um, sorry, if I don't do the proper things on my end, then I'm gonna fail everyone involved. And that was kind of, it's funny because it's kind of how Horser started in a way.
Mhm.
Um, but so that's my kind of coping mechanism, is just learn how to keep my mouth shut.
Yeah, it's definitely much different when, like, your product is opening your mouth endlessly, and like,
Mhm.
I just wind up promising these things and just never doing them. Like there's a number of stuff that I've wanted to do and I still want to do, and I could take the time to plan it out and do it. Sure, I don't know how to. I don't know how to do it. I don't know how to do it with how my schedule is now with like school and everything. That's a big reason why I put a lot of stuff off, and especially regarding planning for my streams, is school is kicking my ass. Yay! Spring break is coming up. It's next week. So, but like, it's it becomes. Let me try and think. This show has been one of the things that I've been wanting to do for a long time, because I think it's great to bring other voices on to talk. And before, it would just happen, organically. There would just be somebody coming on and blah blah blah. But the fact you have to kind of create it from the ground up and have this sort of plan. And I the thing I've accepted with this show is I need the person who's coming on to have an idea of what they want to talk about, rather than me picking the subject, because you can assume that somebody wants to talk about a thing and maybe they just don't, or maybe they don't have the knowledge in it. Maybe maybe you think they have the knowledge on it and you don't. So that's why I've been saying for this, if somebody wants to come on, reach out to me, but have a topic in mind rather than me coming up with the topic, because I don't feel like it's fair to push you into, oh well, I got to do all the studying about this topic and blah blah blah. Like, you reached out and you said what you wanted to talk about. Insomniac Noodles did the same. She said, this is what I want to talk about, and I said, of course, come on. And like, some of them are obvious, like I'm gonna have official People's Party on, and of course we're going to talk about what happened with the movement for the People's Party, and we're going to talk about third parties. Of course it's going to be
No,
like that.
is that, and God help me for saying their name, is that this Jackson Hinkle?
No.
Okay.
Yeah.
I've been kind of disconnected on purpose with some of that stuff because
Jim is the actual originator of the People's Party. He created it with his wife, and he unfortunately lost his wife. And Nick Branagh, and I forget the other guy, kind of swooped in and stole it from him and turned it into the big ball of grifter bullshit that it is now. And not surprisingly, watching it fall apart in record speed. But yeah, it's, you were talking about like whether or not the anxiety of that is ADHD thing. Yeah, absolutely is 110%. Everything I've seen is we get like these very extensive like social anxieties about people, and like a lot of it's not really based on anything. It could be based on what we think people are going to do.
Yeah.
And that's the big reason, you're even how I explain it with, come with your own topic. It's because I worry about like putting people in a position where they're like, well, I don't want to talk about that. Well, all right, I guess I'll go on, and it's like, I don't want people to feel that. I don't want people to go through that whole thing, and have to like look into something that they don't even care about, because I know what it's like to be forced to learn things you don't care about, and how just absolutely grueling it is to make my brain absorb this shit that I'm just like, I don't want it. But yeah, the overpromising is a huge problem, and I do that way too much because this show is running my mouth. give him my takes, things are just going to kind of come out. I've promised a debate with Harkdan over uh, over a year ago about housing, and it was the perfect time because we were having housing was in the news and everything. It still could be a good time, but I want to make sure that when I do it, I'm well versed in housing. And I've gone at him before about it back when Big Brain podcast was a thing. Only time I appeared on that, I went at him pretty hard on some stuff focused on that. But I wanted to have more information when I do it. And it's like, okay, so first things first, what do I need to do? I need to research the stuff. Well, it's boring. That's hard to do. And I don't care about, I care about housing, but I don't care about like the intricacies of the market and blah, 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 blah. I don't,
Right.
I have to be able to answer those things for him though, because that's how he's going to look at it. And really the debate is on one thing that he said to me during Big Brain that I kind of focused in on that was very kind of confusing to me, and at the time I didn't think all that much of it. But he complained about Airbnb, just to kind of give that backstory. I know it's ADHD storytelling.
I'm following it.
Yeah. He was complaining about Airbnb, and he's like, oh yeah, they're causing people to have to raise rents because people are buying up all this extra housing, and they're basically renting these out at a higher price for shorter terms, and that's causing us to have less supply to rent out housing. And like, I really wish I jumped at that at the time, because I'm sitting there thinking about landlord Dan here complaining about that, and I'm like, but that's literally what being a landlord is. It's just more short term. It's literally what you do. So how can you complain about that, recognizing that that's a problem when you buy up housing and rent it out in that way and not allow people to buy it, and then still do that just because it's short term versus long term? It's a different business model, so you don't like it. Like, that's one of the things I want to jump on him about. And I have to have I have to have market knowledge, because he did try to overpower me with his knowledge. It didn't really seem to catch very much because the debate wasn't about that. But he does try. He is one of those people that when he has knowledge in a certain industry, kind of like I mean I do it with healthcare, but like, he tries to just overpower you with the knowledge of the industry rather than talking about the subject at hand, based on that knowledge that he has. So I want to make sure that when he says something like that, I can push back in terms that he knows to kind of trip him up. But I have to do the studying, you know? And there's a number of things that I promised over the years that just don't get done.
I hate stuff like that. And one of the reasons that and I guess I'll just say it, even if this is gonna get posted, I guess I really don't care, is like I hate a lot of debate culture, because it's basically sophistry. Just create like constructing hypothetical situations based on something that shouldn't be a system in place from the start in order to justify the ends of it. It's a big bold lie. Do I really give a and I'll end this part here, but do I really give a shit about why the market functions the way it does? I mean, maybe that's important in the long term, but like I used to live in Lansing, and when I have even post pandemic, well, even during the pandemic, I should say, when we moved, we had tons of housing everywhere, and all the landlords were converting them to Airbnbs for people flying in to stay, and you have record numbers of homeless people. Well, I'm sorry, I don't really care about the pricing model or the lowest minimum pricing in the city of Lansing. I don't give a shit. It doesn't mean anything. What I see is all of these homeless people or just unhoused individuals that don't have a place to go, and their shelters are shutting down, whatever. Um, I want to talk about the fine details, but here's my buddy. He's better at that than I am. Let
Mhm.
me get in there and start talking about it and spread awareness.
Yeah, yeah. I think that's
It's an all sides thing.
I think that's why I bother the shit out of people when I debate, because like I don't like to, I hate the hypotheticals because I have this view that you can talk about this stuff using realistic examples. You can I can look around and tell you what the problem is with renters just by looking at my neighborhood, you know, or the people who buy up land and just own it, or entities that do that, and show how this is the natural conclusion that this is supposed to have, you know. I talk about the blighted housing in Flint all the time, um, because the stuff that the city can't clear is all private owned. They have no right to it. They can't knock it down. They'll get fucking sued, and we're a poor city.
Yeah.
So I can recognize that that's a very real thing that's happening without having to concoct something that works perfectly for my argument. You know, there's no, let's say there's, this is happening now. You know, what say you? Your complaints about, you know, if this went away are not coming into fruition because the problems are being created by your ability to do this in the first place. Like I usually do that with healthcare. I've wanted somebody to justify what the benefit of private health insurance is, and no one has been able to do it for me because there's no benefit to the health industry for it. There's no benefit to doctors. No benefit to manufacturers of drugs. You know, there's no benefit to research teams. There's no benefit to the customer. And
Negative.
yeah, and I don't need to create a fictional story to talk about that because the stories are endless. I have my own, and the data backs up the stories. And I definitely say that as a problem with debate bro culture. And I had a conversation with Jangle Science Lab previously. It's on my YouTube.
Angel's really nice individual.
Yeah, yeah, great guy. I appreciated that conversation. He called it one of the best conversations he's ever had. So whatever. Anyways, but like, I wanted to ask him about a number of the different debate bro things that go on, and I did ask him about things like the hypotheticals and the posturing about, you know, when you just never admit that you were wrong, even though you're clearly wrong. And you know, he had some good answers for that, but like, I don't see debating inherently as bad, but there is a culture that makes it bad. You know, where you're
What was that thing where Sam Cedar like destroyed Jackson Hinkle, and then they got off the podcast, and Jackson was just like demanding to his audience that he won, and he's like, "Let's give ourselves a big pat on the back," and you're like, "I don't understand."
mm-hmm.
I mean, I do understand it, but just it's ridiculous on the face of it,
Mm-hmm.
and that's why I don't think that any of those people exist to genuinely push an agenda forward. I think those people exist to, and I'm not saying they don't believe what they believe because I don't know them and I can't read their minds, but the presentation of that is to generate clicks, get subscriptions, get that money. Does that make them a grifter? I don't think necessarily.
what what
But I do
makes
think it's toxic.
what makes something like Jackson Hinkle a grifter, and what like makes it obvious about what he's doing is what he's pushing is essentially basic conservative views, and calling it communism.
Yep.
And he's using it as like a a sort of bludgeon to protect himself against a left wingers pointing out how right wing he is. You
Yeah.
know, same of Haas, same of Jimmy Dore, same of all the people who hopped on Tulsi's nuts. You
Yep.
know, and that's what makes them grifters to me, and also the fact that they make money off of doing that. They group together. You know, Nick, the socialist MMA, Fred Hampton leftists, with Fred Hampton's son going, "What the? No, stop using my dad's name. What the fuck? You don't believe in anything he believes. You know, your Ryan Knights and all that."
Yeah.
So like, I think that kind of exposes itself. But yeah, there is that um, there is that culture where what the way Jingles expressed it was, he said that they there's a tendency, especially if you have a certain audience, to where you have to come off as infallible, otherwise people will stop watching.
Yep.
And that spoke a lot to me. And he's like, I don't get like that, but I know that's what happens with a lot of these types. Because he considers himself a debate bro. I don't. I don't at all. Because he comes researched, you know, he actually cares about the topics, and he doesn't create dumb hypotheticals to make his to make his argument for him in these fictional world where he's always right. Um, but he disagrees with me. He says he's a debate bro, but that's what he says. Is like it's sort of like a persona thing where you're trying to get people to watch you and not stop watching you because you're you're portraying yourself as infallible.
I remember when I first started shifting from like liberal to, I was still even then like a more progressive liberal, but when I was shifting from there like more towards the left, and I remember when a particular person that I will not name started making content, and that's exactly what it was. Is you just get like, you get into like that cult of personality where you like, you see their takes and you see the way that they approach problems, and you're like, yeah, you're cutting through the bullshit, until you realize that they're not cutting through the bullshit. They're just adding another layer on top of it and walking over it.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
So, but
I
I think to bring it back to ADHD is one of the
Yeah,
things that
I
I
was going
think
to
is
do
a
that.
good. No, 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 no. It's a
No,
good
no, you're
segue.
you're you're
Just
you're right. You're right. You're right. I,
um, I think like when you're talking about a lot of these larger problems, one of the things that I've noticed is it's a lot easier for me, like whether I'm medicated or not. One of the skills that I have that I attribute to ADHD is being able to see the larger picture.
mm-hmm.
So like, I tip it unless I'm looking, I don't really see the trees in the forest. I just see the forest. And that goes to a lot of that minutia is important, but what is the problem right now?
Mm-hmm.
And I think that that's a skill set that's underutilized when it comes to even just the arguments for or against it. I think is something that's really underutilized is, okay, all of that stuff aside, what's happening right now?
Yeah,
You know.
that ability, it definitely makes for uh it works out in your favor to kind of set a position to kind of ground yourself on. Um, where it becomes a problem is when you're actually like planning stuff.
Right.
Because, like you said, we don't see the forest. We don't see like the trees in the forest and everything, woodland creatures, grass, or anything like that. We see the forest. So when we try to plan something, we think of the result and not how you get there. And then when you start doing the stuff to get there, it's either you you try to do it all in like one sitting, you don't sleep, you keep working at it, or you just don't, because you're like, man, that's too monumental a task for me to take on, and I don't know how to break this task up. I need help. And that's what I think like a lot of ADHD creators struggle with. Why when you get bigger, obviously it gets a lot easier because you can call people on to kind of guide things and help you out, and that's beneficial because then it's like I having trouble doing this. Can you do this? But when you're like our size, it's like um, a lot of the stuff. Who can I ask to do this? I have to do it myself. And if it's something that I just cannot get my brain to do, it's just probably not going to get done. Or if it does get done, it's going to not get done very well.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
pain
really
in the
have to
ass.
hand it to my artist. Is somebody who like deeply understands, like, because I've known him for 32 years of my life. And he knows like my comings and goings and my attitudes. And when we first started writing the book, as an example of the overpromising, we had this idea for Horsefer for like 17 years. Um, and he had been already drawing and writing comics, and he's like, "Hey, I want to do this book." And I was like, "Yes, let's do the book. I have all these ideas. We're gonna sit down. We're gonna get it
Hey,
done. Let's do it on
hi,
Tuesday."
bubbers.
And so, Tuesday rolls around. I realized that I put myself in over my head. I was way too over enthusiastic. I let my impulse control get me excited. And so I messaged him and said, "Hey man, I'm not feeling real well." And I wasn't. I was feeling anxious and all this stuff. And I was like, "Hey man, I'm not feeling very well. Can we reschedule to Friday?" And he's like, "Yeah, sure." And so, the not that Friday, but the following Friday, he texted me in the morning. He's like, "Hey man, uh, do you really want to do this?" And I was like, "Well, yeah, of course I do." And he's like, "Well, you've canceled 3 times, like just to sit down to write." And so I just finally ended up explaining it to him, and he was like, "All right, we're gonna start to work around that."
Does
Hi,
does
buddy.
does he have ADHD? He said hi.
I don't want to talk about him unless he's here. I don't want to,
Oh, okay. I
just
was just kind
impart
of.
his.
Well, I mean, I was
You
I was.
can you can infer.
I'm
You
only
can
asking
infer.
that. I'm only asking that because like, um, uh, there is some understanding that comes with that. Um, and it sort of becomes a thing where like you're kind of both working around the different things that affect you.
Yeah, and that is, I
This boy,
guess, in
I
a way,
swear.
that is kind of what happens. Um, but then we finally got like a system that worked for both of us, and by gum, when it's time to sit down and write, we sit down and write.
Mm-hmm.
And thanks to ADHD, we have the weirdest freaking comic book I've ever read.
I have not had the chance to read it. Hang on a second. Can you go watch more Elmo, Bubba? Go watch more Elmo. Watch more Elmo.
If
Oh
you ever
boy.
want to, I'll send you some digital copies for free.
I couldn't take it for free. I'd feel bad doing that because I know
No,
the
no, no,
struggle.
no, no. We just
Uh,
got booked on a con, so
Well,
everyone else in here though,
if
you
it's
better buy it. I'm
if
just, I'm just kidding.
if it's not gonna hurt you, and it takes for me forever to read stuff. By the way,
It's fine.
that's the part of my ADHD I got is like I used to be an avid reader when I was a kid, and it just
We have a
really
lot in common.
it was just it became harder and harder as I got older. It's easier for me to read like digital stuff, like short digital stuff, than it is to sit down and read a book, which really sucks
Yeah.
for when you're getting leftism, and you're like, oh, you got to read this theory and this theory and this theory and this theory. It's like I'm in a position where I'm like going, do I though? Hey, stop, stop, go watch Elmo, go watch Elmo. Sorry, I don't
Is
even.
that right?
He wants me to hold him so he can grab at the microphone and hit the keyboard, which is things he cannot do. He like almost shut down the stream. Make sure he wasn't messing with the plugs.
We're maybe thinking about adopting, but we're going for 7, 8 years old. So
Yes, skipping the early parts is although there's some stuff that they have to unlearn at that point that can be difficult too.
yeah.
Eli, stop, stop, go play, go play. You have your
Uh,
blocks and everything. Anyways.
Another thing that I find really interesting that I don't know if you deal with it either, and I have some underlying stuff um, as well, but one of the things that always bothers me, and I never caught it, I'd stopped taking my meds when I was a teenager, and I didn't get back on them until I was in like 30, or 32 last year actually.
Hmm.
Um, and I have a little bit to say about that. Um, in fact, I'll start with that. I went to get re-diagnosed, and I had all my paperwork from my previous doctor that like supported it. I had been diagnosed and re-diagnosed several times, and this new doctor that I was seeing was like, "Well, I just want you to go for me. Go to the psychiatrist and go see a therapist for. I need you to see your therapist for 30 days or 4 appointments, and I need you to do a full testing with a psychiatrist." And so, in the pandemic, just to paint a relatively bleak picture, and you know about a lot of my health struggles and stuff,
Mm-hmm.
which are getting monumentally better, but
That's good. I'm glad to
this
hear that.
was just before the Trans Lifeline fun stream, um, and my health was as bad as it had ever been. I was um, basically immobile, not because of my weight or anything, but because I just had all these pains and all this stuff due to some underlying health stuff, and just depressed. I was like drinking a lot and all this stuff. And I went to my doctor and I was like, "Listen, this is what's going on. I've been doing a lot of reading. I guess I know I'm not a doctor, but I think that this is my untreated ADHD is making this worse, you know." And I had started smoking again,
Mm-hmm.
uh, cigarettes, not jazz cabbage, Uh, not that
Nothing.
I have anything against it.
Yeah, I was gonna
Um,
say nothing wrong with that. Mm-hmm.
no, not at all. Um, and so despite and I get that you want an accurate diagnosis. She doesn't want like uh, a lawsuit or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But instead of just saying like, okay, take this paperwork to a psychiatrist and get your test and then come back to me, she like laid out all these stipulations, and I had to go in and give like a verbal testimony and like sign some paperwork or something like stating that I requested this medication, and she had counseled me through it and all, just ridiculous amounts of stuff. And so on top of all of that, I went to the same pharmacy for a year, every month on the same day. Meyer Pharmacy near where I live.
Mm-hmm.
And every time, even if it was the same person at the counter, it was this whole I would hand them my script. They would look at it and say, "Oh, methylphenidate, we don't have that here," and hand it back. And then I had to be like, "No, no, wait, look me up on the computer." So they'd look me up on the computer. Then it'd be like a 5 minute wait for them to go back and have the pharmacist come up to like interrogate me. And then they would finally fill the prescription. And the it's not that fun to abuse. Like if you were somebody, people generally don't take it to party, they take it to cram for studies or to not fall asleep. It's not like a fun time party drug.
Yeah.
And if I wanted it to abuse it, why would I spend the $1,400 or whatever the hell to deal with all the diagnosis, to then go to the pharmacy to be put in a computer. It just doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
And so that really pisses me off. Is just the whole, uh, I would call it like addict culture, that a lot of pharmacies and a lot of medical staff have, where it's just, I've had jobs where they've found out that I've taken my medication. I did take it a couple years ago. I had it for a couple months. But there was a job that had found out that I was taking it, and they wanted to give me like an additional drug test and like do all this stuff until I produced for them a document from my doctor that said that I was prescribed for it. Like they were gonna like lay me off work for 2 weeks and make me do all this extra stuff, like just because I was taking medicine that I didn't even bring it to the workplace. Insane,
Yeah.
just ridiculous.
Yeah, I'm wondering how that's gonna be. I mean, I'm going through that sort of struggle right now with how to keep my meds filled.
I was seeing that on Twitter. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Last month, and I'm pretty sure I'm going to be dealing with it this month too. And I haven't been able to do the things that I wanted to do to prepare for it. Hey, planning, cool. Uh, where even for me to get on stimulant medication from the beginning, um, they required me to go and get a drug test, which is really really funny because if I go and like, what are they what are they expecting to find that is going to cause me to have problems with this drug, like, I'm like you said, it's not a fun time drug that people take just to party. It's not fucking cocaine or anything. It's literally something college kids take to help them study. And for people with ADHD, it kind of helps your brain kind of, um, it compacts everything in your brain down to make it so the clearer thoughts can get through a lot easier. So
The
why
way
why do I need to get drug tested in order, and this is a Michigan law, in order to get this? And then on top of that, I can only do a 30-day supply at a time,
Yep.
and I can only order it every 30 days.
Mm-hmm.
And that's federal law. So you're just doubly hit, with with this problem where you're just trying to treat an illness, and they're essentially telling you that doing so is bad, and doing so with any other means is also bad. Because, like, yeah, I smoke weed. I had to quit in order to get tested in order to take my Adderall. That's ridiculous. Because I
To
use weed
skip.
for my anxiety, which comes from my,
Right. It's all compounding.
yeah.
And for these, I had to, because I ran into the same issue that you did, with the 30-day thing, and I ended up skipping uh 2 days of my meds with all the bad headaches and everything. I just skipped 2 days. So like the day, I forgot exactly how I did it, but basically I made it so the 30-day window, I would have like 2 pills left over. And so now it all seems to be fine. And then now with, only the 28 days or whatever in February, that definitely helped. But yeah, I mean, I just don't understand why it's necessary. Because, I mean, shit, I could go tomorrow if I had, if I did 15 minutes of research online and had the right cluster of symptoms. I would put money on the fact that I could go to my doctor and get Vicodin, Xanax, May not be able to get fentanyl, but I can get Vicodin, Xanax, like all day, every day. Now I
That's
don't
a good
take.
point.
There's family stuff. I don't take pain meds because I'm
That
scared what would happen. But the the fact of the matter is so many more dangerous drugs. If you abuse Adderall or Concerta or whatever, I mean, I'm sure at some point your heart would explode. But in terms of like more immediately addictive and abused substances are so much more widely available with way less of a barrier of entry. If I go to my doctor and say I tweaked my back, I don't know what I did. It hurts so bad. And they're gonna say, all right, well here's Tylenol threes, okay, and then I go back next week, say they didn't work.
hmm
Now I have Vicodin. You know,
yeah, yeah.
it's not hard.
That is an insanely good point. I didn't even think of that. Yeah, I've never gone through this sort of thing in order to get pain meds. And yeah, I've taken Tylenol 5, Norcos. I've
Yeah,
been prescribed fucking uh uh like I'm forgetting the names of them. Like even with like sleeping pills. Sleeping
yeah.
pills I got prescribed at one point. I got prescribed like a PRN
Does it go muscle
Klonopin.
relaxer? Oh, Clonopin.
Yeah, Klonopin
Yeah.
for when my anxiety was really bad, and this was before I knew I had ADHD. And I didn't have to do anything. I just had to put in uh, my birth date, and that's it. But
Wow.
in order to get Adderall, I had to like go through so many monumental hoops. Um, that it was insane, and it's a sort of uh uh uh, uh criminalizing. I don't feel is the right word, but it maybe the word will come to me. It's a sort of
Overregulating?
no
No.
no demonizing. It's a sort of
There
like
you go.
demonizing of people with ADHD who are just trying to get help for their illness, and we're seen as drug seeking. But it's not seen as drug seeking if you go to the doctor and ask for something for pain, and they give you, fucking Norco 575s or something like that, or fucking fentanyl. That's fine. That's okay. You don't need to get a drug test and go through the ringer for that. Oh, and it's always in stock. Um, I have not seen any issues with stocking that,
No.
but Adderall they don't have any in stock.
My mom is a hell of a woman. She's had cancer 4 times. She has a heart birth defect, a pacemaker, 2 fake hips, a fake knee, and like a replacement ankle. Like, if everything goes up a nuclear holocaust, the cockroaches are going to be looking for her for like survival tips.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you cannot kill that woman if you tried. And going to taking her to pain clinics uh, around and outside of Detroit and Dearborn and all that,
Mm-hmm.
and through like what's Holland Shaner, Sterling Heights, I think. Um, and there are all these pain clinics, which are good, you know. And
Mm-hmm.
when she was dealing with her different cancer treatments and stuff, she would go to these clinics and they would prescribe her medicine in accordance with her pain and everything. But going around there and being around those places, um, it's so wild how some of them are like just these ramshackle, like hole in the wall next to the party store type places where there's a doctor, but you literally just walk in, and so like it's for dealers basically. And I'm not here to like demonize drugs or like that's not my point.
Mm-hmm.
But my point is
Same.
that the fact that I guess just going back to it, just the fact that the barrier of entry is so unbelievably low for more dangerous drugs. Um, really blows my mind, and I think it lays bare. I'm not a conspiracy guy or anything, but there's absolutely some sort of um it's got to be a pricing thing or a market thing or somebody's benefiting more on one than the other. And I don't know what that means, but it really feels that way cuz as a separate example, one of my symptoms is I have it's not called phantom pain
Hmm.
because that's I believe when you lose a limb,
Yeah, that is.
but it's very similar to that where I have it's my brain like sparks basically, and I'll get like a really bad shoulder pain or like a really bad back pain, and no pain medication helps it because it's not in the body. It's nerve synapses like firing
Hmm.
off.
Something like
And
something like gabapentin and stuff like that. Like that's actually used for like neuralgia. Um, it should be what they're prescribing in that case. Or if it's like a muscle spasm or something, like a muscle relaxer. There's one that starts with a T that I cannot remember the name of. So yeah, like the way everything is set up currently in the system, and it's around the world too, is it's incredibly unfriendly to people with ADHD, and ADHD is pretty common, and we're expected to conform to this idea of uniformity when literally the way our brains work, and it's not that we're unable to do work, we actually do really good work. We're incredibly creative. We think outside the box. Um, you know, we obsess over details. So long as it's a thing that interests us, and but we're expected to do it in this world where we do not fit into this world of timelines and attendance and truancy and careful planning and all that and tidiness. Like
I think
getting through that is tough.
one of the reasons that I really liked that's not the way to say that. I don't like the pandemic. That's not what I meant. One of the
The
one of the decent
positives.
things, right? One of the positives that came out of the pandemic that they're really just really looking for a way to ruin, um, is the work from home for. And I've talked to a lot of people with various neurodivergences, and they generally tend to say the same. And there are people that I've talked to who are neurodivergent. They want to go to the office, and that's just a variation among people. But a lot of people that I've talked to, specifically with ADHD, is that they really like the work from home because 90% of your work is, depending on what you do, is sitting there and staring at a screen. 9 times out of 10,
Hmm.
if you're working an office job, which are what were the remote jobs, and all of the performance that surrounds making sure you look, not that this part is particularly difficult, but you all know what I mean, like looking presentable, making sure you get everything done by the time you need to get in the car to drive to work. And then you have to sit with your coworkers all day, and you can't fidget and you can't make noise and you can't stim and you can't do the things that sort of help you alleviate that
You can't
anxiety.
take a break on your schedule.
Right. And so this whole work from home thing, that, and mark my words, they are desperately looking for the best way to destroy that.
They are.
Not even by making people go back to work, but they're gonna find a way. Um, but it's given people this unprecedented opportunity to see what work looks like when, while you may hate your job, in theory you don't have to be comfortable. You don't have to be uncomfortable all day. You can, if you're not on a webcam based office job, you don't necessarily have to get dressed or put on makeup or whatever. If you're at that computer, normally, if you work 30 minutes away, you got to leave your house basically an hour early to account for traffic. Instead of waking up at, let's say you got to be there at 8, you got to wake up at 6:30 or 6 o'clock to leave the house by 7 to get there by 8. Well, all of a sudden, you get to have an additional like hour and a half at the beginning of your day and an additional hour and a half at the end, on top of all the things that you can now do to make yourself feel comfortable. And if you look at a lot of those numbers, depending on the industry, they've skyrocketed in productivity and workplace satisfaction and things like that.
Well, yeah, because you're just doing the work. You're not
Yeah,
doing like the thing I kept thinking back to is like I I would always tell Glam, you know, I like my work because it's boring. There's nothing, no drama with it to bring home. When I was working in the office, I hated working in an office, but I like office work.
yeah,
Like, because I can just sit down and just get it done, and at my own pace, more or less. But so long as I'm getting the shit done and I'm meeting the goals that I set for myself, I didn't give a shit about anybody else. But the things that always have dragged me down and gotten me to lose jobs and stuff is this interpersonal stuff that you have to work with. And I don't like that at all. I love people. Don't get me
yeah.
wrong. But work people is a completely different thing entirely. Um, and I totally get that because people can just sit down and instead of being distracted by someone else's drama and bullshit and formalities and whatever, maybe you're going into a meeting. You can prepare yourself for, okay, I'm going to a meeting at this time. I got to deal with people, so I need to do this, this, and this to prepare for it. And, you can kind of arrange your spoons, as they say. And then you go and do it, and then you're back by yourself, screen in front of you, and you're just doing your work. Of course, productivity is going to go up, and of course, they're going to see that as a problem because then you can't have the old boys club.
Yep.
You know, oh, that's my buddy because they'll hang out with me after work or they'll talk to me during work and they'll get along, and their work becomes secondary. Plenty of people who
Yeah.
are really shitty at their jobs, and the only reason they'll never get fired is because people like them.
I've, I've been on both ends of that.
Yeah, you know. But I just love that you brought up that the productivity went up because of course it did.
I think the what's going to end up happening, and I'm not an economist. I don't specialize in labor theory or anything, but one of the ways that I envision a lot of these jobs, a la David Graeber, bullshit jobs, is
Mm-hmm.
he does a million fantastic lectures, and they're
Graeber's
all on
great.
YouTube for free. Yeah, and this whole concept of bullshit jobs. I think when you hear that, not you, but anybody, when you hear the term bullshit job, it's ingrained to us to think of McDonald's or like retail. Um,
It's not.
Obviously, that's not the case. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think that it is good that there are jobs that require schedules because I think that there are people that really do enjoy like rigid scheduling. They see the value in it. It helps them to focus. And I think that those jobs, let's say you're one of those people and you really enjoy, you genuinely enjoy the labor of working at McDonald's.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think that that's, and I'm preaching to the choir here, but I don't think that that's something inherently less valuable because think about you as a consumer to be able to go into a place where everybody, what is normally a nightmare experience, I don't care who you are, you've been to a fast food restaurant and it's been a nightmare. And
Mm-hmm.
I'm here to tell you, it's really easy to blame the workers, and I've done that, and maybe that's the case sometimes. But I would put good money on the fact that it's bad management,
Mm-hmm.
and it's bad management, it's bad leadership, and it's overbearing leadership. So there's like that portion of it. Like there will be people that enjoy rigid schedules. They enjoy the work that should be fairly compensated. On the converse side, I think a lot of this office job stuff, aside from maybe some necessary meetings and stuff to get everybody on the same page, I don't understand aside from maybe financial deadlines or things like that, I don't understand why I can't go to an office and just get a list of activities that need to be done. And why
Yeah.
am I working 8 hours a day? If I can, I will tell you, in every job I've ever worked, where it's between 7 to 10 hours a day, there's no way in hell that I'm working more than 3 hours that day, because it's going to be all the downtime in between, all the walking back and forth, the breaks, relieving people, writing shit down. It's not valuable time spent. So if I
No,
can
it's
go
not.
in there and have some sort of, dare I say, some sort of salaried position that basically states, if you get your work done, like, I don't care if it's a work day, I don't care if you show up, you know, even if it's 8 to, let's say, 8 to 6. I don't care if you show up
An hour
at,
late.
or an hour later, or at 1 p.m.
Yeah.
If you walk out of here and that work is done, I really don't care what you do. And I think that that's going to be what people are going to end up, aside from the powers of that be making that not so. I
Yeah.
think that that would be the way that would solve a lot of problems, aside from fair compensation, and address a lot of neurodivergences where some of those things may cause anxiety. When I worked at a particular credit union, there was this guy, I don't want to say his name, but this
Yeah.
gentleman
No
that
point.
they had hired, who had or not the credit union. It doesn't matter. Um, but they had hired this gentleman who was had nonverbal autistic
Mm-hmm.
gentleman, and they had hired him. It wasn't savant type or anything like that. He just really enjoyed order. And so they basically gave him permission they gave him his jobs to do. He wasn't treated, aside from his necessary um, work accommodations. He wasn't treated any different. He was included in all of our meetings, and he was a really core part of the team. And all he did is he sorted records, physical records, and they would say, per week, this is what we need you to get done. And that guy went in there and did that every single week. The best record keeper I've ever seen in my life. And it was because his accommodations were properly addressed. They took the truancy angle out of his situation. He was supposed to be there 8 to 6, but if he came in at noon, he was getting every last bit of that work done without staying over. He understood what his limits were, and he worked within them. And that would be the future of labor, aside from a million other things that we could go into. Would be one aspect of labor that I'm really passionate about, is even if you're neurodivergent, obviously you may need some accommodations, but I think everybody should be entitled to a certain number of accommodations, if nothing more than, even if we're pushing this, capitalist line up, it would be in your best interest to ensure that the people that are working for you have the best level of productivity possible. And
Yeah.
I think it's a ridiculous blind spot, even in this shit system or whatever, that, I mean, obviously the goal is to exploit the labor, but it seems ridiculous to me that that's not like priority number one.
Mm-hmm.
You know, if I'm happy, I'm gonna work for you better.
If
You know,
if this society that claims to care so much about individuality and individualism, like if if they actually gave a shit about it, they would be doing stuff like that, because it would be focused on an individual and an individual's needs, along with, you know, providing for said individual. Instead, what we what we do is just tell people to go fuck themselves, you know, and you all need to be exactly the same, but it's your fault. It's your individual fault if you don't reach any sort of success. So the individualism is on your failure, and not on your success at all. Because in order to succeed, you need to not be an individual. You need to be just a cog in a machine. So
Company man.
yeah, that's one of the things. Like I always rail against this the idea of individualism in this country because it's so ass backwards, and it's not individualism. It's not
Active.
individualistic at all. They only
Yeah.
individualize your failures because they don't want to take credit for where the system fucks up. If it was
Well,
actually individualized, they could very easily make accommodations for people with neurodivergence, people who have kids, people who have health conditions. They could very easily do that, but they
well,
don't.
unless they can essentialize, kid heartwarming, kid opens lemonade stand to pay for his mom's cancer treatments.
Hmm.
If it could draw away from
But what is
the
that?
ways of right.
That's again, that's this
Yeah.
kid is going to be a cog in the machine, and look how good he is at being this cog. He's going out and
Hmm.
raising money for something that he shouldn't have to go out and raise money for. That's a can-do attitude to be an individual who had this idea. Like, no one's ever thought of a fucking lemonade stand before. Oh, lemonade, this brand new thing, you know buying country time lemonade from the store and putting it in jars and putting it in fucking glasses and selling it. Oh, what an original idea. No, it's you're showing that you're someone who can fit into the car into the machine and not rock the boat at all. And if you
I,
fail, it's because you suck
yeah.
individually.
I love that idea where it comes down to like um capitalism is, and I'm not an economist, but it's so funny to me how many like children, and obviously there's like that indoctrination aspect to it, but children understand the fundamentals of I give you this for that.
Hmm.
The money part a little more abstract, but I want to play with your doll, you want to play with mine, let's trade, that's mutually beneficial.
Yeah.
And so the next logical step would be, um for lack of a better understanding of kids, my mom has cancer, we need to pay for cancer, how do I do that? So you take all the individual pieces of lemonade, your lemons, your sugar, or you fucking buy it, who knows?
Hmm.
um
It's
and it makes
cheaper just to buy
sense.
country time.
Yeah, and it makes sense to a child that I can get this big thing of country time lemonade for $4, and then I can sell it for a dollar a glass, making 36 glasses or whatever out of a single. Like, that makes sense to a child.
Yeah.
And for that to be like the gold standard of capitalism, the exploitation of resources and labor and everything, for a child to be able to basically distill the essence down into it, to show us this broken, fractured system, is so unbelievably comical to me.
Yeah. Yeah. And tying it back to ADHD, like the fact that we're told to just conform when literally our condition is built on us not literally not being able to, like us struggling to just do the things that make us fall in line. Like we're supposed to be we're supposed to be seen as like the people who create new things in society, but we're hampered at every chance in doing that because again that rocks the boat. And it would be so easy for society, like it sounds like it'd be really complicated because to individualize a lot of these different things, but it'd actually be incredibly easy because most of the time most people will fall into these very specific rules. Like, let's say you have this office job where you're like, okay, we start at 9, we end at 5. I'd like you to be here at 9 and leave at 5. I'd like to have this done at this time, this done at this time. And if someone's like, well, I have ADHD, giving them, be like, okay, so I understand that you're probably going to be late every now and then. But, we still like to have this done at this time. Like, okay, yeah. I also have to drop my kid off at school. Okay, well, what time you have to have him there? Oh, I have him there at this time. Oh, okay, well, yeah, just small little adjustments, but like just so long as you get like the work done, that's what should matter. Is That's supposed to be the productivity. It'd be incredibly easy to do because you still have your office hours, and most people are going to show up from 9 to 5, take their lunches at their specific times, and get the shit done. They're the majority of people are going to be able to do that, but there's going to be some people who just simply have trouble with it. And if you just go, okay, well, that's so and so, they do this, they have this problem,
Right.
it's not a big deal because you can go, but they get their work done every fucking day and it's good, and they're not being a problem to our workplace. But we don't do that because we kill the individual until they fuck up.
I don't like the idea that a lot of those places have like teamwork, dreamwork mentality, but like
Oh yeah, I hate that.
if I'm lacking in an area and my manager told me to, I don't know, sort this paperwork, and I was lacking in whatever I was doing and my coworker comes and does it, like why am I getting written up for my team working as intended? You know?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And that really breaks down with the ADHD thing, because I know for a fact there are going to be points where I'm lacking or I'm late or whatever, and I've always had to juggle so much and not getting written up just because I had I don't want to get into it, but I had a bathroom issue a couple years ago. Like a stomach bathroom thing a couple years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And I had to take frequent bathroom breaks, and I got written up for taking longer than a 5-minute bathroom break. The first time was a warning, and I said, "Hey, I have this thing. I'm really sorry, but I'll try to limit it, but whatever." And they're like, "We have to go to a doctor. We need a doctor's note." I said, "Well, I don't have insurance," and they were like, "All right, well, I guess that solves that. So you're not going to be taking those long bathroom breaks anymore, are you?"
It's
At
like,
one point, they were
no,
like, "You need."
that's not how that works. I can't just tell my body that, hey, I don't have the paperwork.
No, at one point, my manager actually just suggested, he's like, "Have you ever considered just taking Imodium?" He's like, "You can just take Imodium before you come to work, and that'll." Like, do you understand like how much that ravages your insides? So
Yeah, yeah.
I ended up
Just
burning
end
out of
up
there.
impacted and go to the hospital for an impacted bowel and fucking uh, becoming septic because you can't go. That's so much better. And yeah, I deal with deal with the same issues. I have a lot of stomach issues myself, and I was lucky enough in my last job. Like, for as much as I complain about me getting fired and the one thing that happened, like I did like that job. They were very accommodating to me. They were very understanding. I was late all the time, and they knew that I was still going to show up every day unless I told them I wasn't going to. Because I told them early on when I had ADHD, I was like, yes, because they wouldn't say much when I was late, but I would be like, I'm sorry I'm late. I feel so terrible. And when I found out I had ADHD, I told them, I was like, I have ADHD. And they were like, oh, okay. And they just never talked to me about being late ever again. And bathroom issues, I was like, okay, so sometimes my stomach's going to cause a lot of issues. And my boss at the time and my coworker at the time that I first started with both had similar issues. So they got it. And they're like, okay, so you're going to be in the bathroom at one point for like a half hour, trying to make this whole thing work. But you're coming back and you're doing your fucking work, and then you're going the fuck home. They understood that, and they wouldn't give a shit that I would do that. My next coworker didn't understand that and was always confused by that, no matter how many times I explained it to her. But I still had the infrastructure in place for them to be like, not say anything about it. And there would be little things here and there that I'd have to change, you know, but for the most part, they were very accommodating to all my conditions, and I appreciated that a lot. So I liked that job for the most part. You know, the things that made me not like it was the interpersonal bullshit. Just let me do my fucking job and go home. You know? Is it getting done by the time you want it to get done? Yes, most of the times it is. That's what should matter. My work. But it's the interpersonal stuff.
I'll
And
never.
yeah,
I'm sorry. Go
I
ahead.
have been fired specifically from another office job because I went to the bathroom too much. I have. Same. Just
Yeah, I mean, one of my favorites was when I was selling cell phones, and whenever the district manager was there and you went to go to the bathroom, um, he'd be like, "All right, put your phone in lockup." And I'm like, "What?" He had this little lockbox with a key. He'd be like, "All right, you're going to the bathroom. You know, go ahead, pop your phone in here, and we'll see you in a few minutes." And that was like the rule, is like if you had to go to the bathroom, you couldn't take your phone with you. Um, and I ended up leaving that job uh, not long after that. But yeah, the phone lockup was one. And
Jesus.
non-mandatory unpaid after work meetings, where you were basically, this was a different job. They called them team building meetings, and they would buy us, pizza or whatever, because it's always fucking pizza. Um, and you didn't have to go. You were not required to go. But if you didn't go, it looked like you were being a team player. And so those two things always really pissed me off. I don't know that I've ever had a job that's actually been accommodating. And I think for a long time, I just wouldn't tell them anything. And I'd be like, all right, well, I'm going to burn out here. So I'll just ride this out for, you know, a
Mm-hmm.
year or two or 6 months to a year or whatever. Fuck it. Because as soon as I tell them that I have a neurodivergence, they're gonna ask for all this paperwork, or they're not gonna accommodate me, or they're gonna start treating me differently, or I'm not gonna have the same opportunities. And so, and the thing that sucks is I'm really, really good at office politics and like interpersonal work stuff through masking and a number of other like survival skills, I guess, that I've learned. I'm like really good at it, but the star that burns the brightest, you know, fades out the quickest. So I would always have like this meteoric rise to glory in whatever job I had, and then 6 months to a year after that, I'd get fired or quit because of some unforeseen circumstance.
Yeah. For me, I've never been good with that sort of thing and like dealing with people. And I've always done solid work. Like I'm at my best now, but like if it's something I'm interested in, I absolutely will do good work on it. Um, but like it's the interpersonal stuff. It's why like I'm always trying to convince, like I spend a lot of my time when I would be doing these jobs trying to convince people that when I see like something bubbling up, tell me what I'm doing wrong. Tell me what I'm saying and how I'm saying it that makes you think that I'm being a dickhead to you. And
Exactly.
I will correct it, because 9 times out of 10, I have no fucking clue. I had this supervisor back when I worked in hospice who fucking hated me, tried to find any reason to criticize me, and like to the point where the nurses were telling her like, he does good work and all his patients like him. Back the fuck off. And they were all telling me that. It's like, yeah, I've talked to her several times about that. Like, I don't know why she's doing that to you. And it's because something. I did at some point bothered her. And I still to this day have no fucking clue what it was. But I just kept doing my good work, and luckily it was on I we were home hospice, so I didn't spend much time in the office. Like there would be like I wouldn't even have to start my day in the office. I would just at the end of the day I would have to turn in my paperwork. And I would be there for maybe like a half hour to an hour. And that's my office day. So I didn't really have to deal with her except for when she wanted to find a problem. And I really just wanted to know the entire time because I kept asking her, what am I doing wrong that's making you think that I'm trying to cause problems? Because I swear to you, I'm not. And I never got that answer. And, you know, I, I've dealt with that for so long. And then finding out, you know, last year that the reason I don't understand this stuff is literally because my brain is different and people still treat you like that.
Yeah.
Is it almost makes it worse because now I know it's not just me refusing to understand these things. It's I literally don't. I literally can't because my brain works differently. So help me to help you is what I've learned to say to a lot of people when this stuff comes up. And they don't take the time to do that. They just steamroll over you to assume that you have to fit in with exactly what everyone else is. And that's insane to me. That is how we operate.
Yeah, the I had a boss when I was working out in Detroit. I worked at a bank, and this woman was, I don't even know how to describe her. It was one of the first times I ever stuck up for myself for accommodations, and I'm trying to think of how to tell the story. Basically, she gotten
We
so
have to get going
frustrated
soon,
with
by the
me.
way.
Oh, okay,
Yeah.
I'll just skip that story. Then it's not that
No,
interesting.
you can tell it. I'm sure it's not going to be too long. Just I try to end by one.
Oh.
But
No, just long story short, the way that she would get frustrated with some of these accommodations, one of the few times that I actually had like the paperwork to back it up, she ended up getting fired because I couldn't be there on a certain day because I had treatment that I had to go to, and like everybody knew was not a secret. She had 2 weeks in advance, and she didn't schedule the proper coverage. And this had been repeating on and on and on and on and on and on. And she was getting in trouble for it, rightfully so. But just treating my disability like such a liability, and you know what, maybe to you it is. I'm sorry, my neurodivergence. And maybe it is, but you have the information to fix it. She ended up throwing a stapler past my head so hard that the ass end of it stuck in the wall. And I went home and I wrote the district manager right then and there. But it's like a pattern of, I don't want to call it abuse, but sort of like an obfuscation or a purposeful smokescreen that people put between themselves and somebody that's neurodivergent because they're either unwilling to understand what that means and how it works, um, or at worst, they're outright hostile to it. And,
they
I don't
don't.
want to say hate you, but that ableism.
Yeah, they don't want to make these sort of accommodations to like change their behavior because they're just set in their ways and they're convinced they're already doing everything correct. But problem is like you meet you get someone like us, you have to kind of change how you do things because otherwise, yeah, these problems are going to come up and we're going to be just as fucking confused as you are as to why these are problems. That's probably the craziest thing that a lot of those people don't understand is like, not only do we care like tons more than we appear to, but um we're also trying to understand what the fuck is going on and how to fix it, because we are we have this weird thing where we want to people please. The most recent how to ADHD video talks about that. Like, we want to people please. We want people to be happy with us. We want the path of least resistance so we can do the things that make us happy. That is like 90 we're chasing, if you want to talk about any drug that we're chasing fucking dopamine endlessly to the ends of the earth. And we want it. We want all of the dopamine because please, our brain is starving us of it. So,
Addiction is so prevalent in ADHD as well.
yeah. So when people don't want to change their behavior to accommodate someone else because it's slightly inconvenient to them, there of course there's going to be problems. But we're going to be just as confused about how we got to that point as they are. They're asking us, why do you do this? We have the answer as to why we're doing this, and then we're asking them, why is this a problem and how can I fix it? And they're just telling us just to not be that. And it's like, what? That doesn't answer the question. It's just,
Sends so many confusing messages. Yeah.
yeah. Yeah, it's like,
Me and my
help
partner have
us.
this. Me and my partner built this, and I'll keep this very short. But we built
Hmm.
this incredible system. We call it information or affirmation. And I'll. It has to do with feedback and comfort,
Mm-hmm.
which can be really difficult. And so, with ADHD, you have mood swings or you get angry, you're not sure why. And it's not violent, but you get in a bad, I turn inward. Um,
Same.
I'll be like, Jesus Christ. And I, just kind of swear up a storm or something, which I'm trying to stop. And so, she'll walk up to me and she'll say information or affirmation. And if I just really need somebody to say, hey, I get it, it's okay, I say affirmation and she helps calm me down, and I do the same for her. But then if I say information, that's where she has, then permission to say, not permission, but it means I'm ready for it. Where I say, all right, I'll take the information, and she'll say, you're being ridiculous. I understand why you're upset, but this is, and like we'll go through the information aspect.
Mm-hmm.
And when I say that has completely turned my life around, I'm not kidding. There were so many times between the two of us, because she's learning a lot about it too with ADHD, is between the two of us, there was like this communication barrier of exactly what you were saying, where you don't, it's almost like you don't feel comfortable telling people what you need, and people aren't comfortable asking you what you need. And so this sort of just like bridged the gap. And so, and oftentimes, if I just need somebody to tell me it's okay and I need affirmations, I'll calm down and then I'll say, all right, give me the information, you know?
Yeah.
And so it's
Yeah.
a win win both ways. But how the hell do you do that with a job? you know?
Yeah. Well, I mean, they have to know that going in, or they have to actually give a shit about wanting to do that. And
Yeah.
I think it's more so the second part that's a problem. I don't expect everyone to know everything about ADHD going in, but if they hear that and they go, okay, how can I make this um, the most accommodating it can be for you? You can come up with stuff like that, and they can go, oh, okay. But instead, there's this entire resistance to it, and I think that a lot of people these days are getting left behind because of that,
100%.
and it's fucking dog shit. That's
It
awful.
takes the bare minimum amount of compassion
Mm-hmm. I
to
agree.
to do it. That's it.
Yeah.
And that's all it is. People lack compassion. And I don't mean that like people are evil and they suck. I just mean we're not trained
We're
in
told
any
not
way,
to.
shape, or form.
We're told
You
not
know?
to. We're told not to
Exactly.
care. You know, we're told not to give a shit about the homeless people. We're told not to give a shit about people who can't work. And you know, another big thing about us is we're incredibly sensitive to that shit. We can't ignore it. Like if we see something that like piques our interest is a weird way of saying it, but like if I see homeless people all the time and I want to help them, but I fucking can't. But I want to know like how did that happen? Why is this happening? And why are we allowing this to happen? And you get kind of overwhelmed with like the sort of compassion that you have, because a lot of this stuff boils down to shit that you have no power in stopping. And that's what causes a lot of people, especially on the left, to kind of lose their minds about stuff and think that there's easy buttons to everything. And
Yeah.
we didn't end up talking about general strikes, but that was the thing that I was getting upset about, was people thinking that we can just skip a bunch of steps and move to it. Because yes, the need is there. We all understand that. The problem is we are fighting against something that is wholly ingrained into every society in the world and has destroyed people, has destroyed entire countries and entire civilizations for centuries on end. And it comes back to, we just need to have compassion. And if we had that compassion at the highest levels of, say, our government or our corporate structure, and the incentives were there for them to have that compassion, the world would be way better. Like, who knows what even economic system we'd even have, but like it'd be better than what we're doing now.
I think smart money is whatever comes after what we have right now. I don't think it's going to be communism. I don't think it's going to be socialism. I think it's going to be something totally, for better or worse, it's going to be something totally unique and relatively new. And I don't want to hijack here, but exactly to your point, and I'll say this a million times over: find your fucking people. Find the people that live near you, live in your community, and share this type of information. Talk to them, get different perspectives, start building your communities. I'm not going to say where we do, but I don't live terribly close to Mark. I could probably get there, but we still live in communities that have similar needs. And while those needs are different, they connect and they help everybody. What conservatives are doing right now, and we've all seen it with the anti-critical race theory, the mask mandates, and all this kind of stuff, is they are going into their communities and they're aligning all low levels of government with their people. They beat us. They beat us there. We need to fight back.
Yeah,
So find your people, talk to your people. This is like the first step to exactly what Mark always talks about, to start building up and making change in our communities that we can start to go up. And I know it's frustrating, but you ain't getting single payer tomorrow.
yeah,
It doesn't matter what we do, it's not going to happen. You got to, and I'm not an incrementalist, but you have to start.
yeah. If
That's the
if
hard part.
the thing about, if you are someone who believes in the revolution, is you have to build the conditions for which one can happen and people want
Bingo.
to join it. And it's true of a general strike, it's true of even incrementalism. If you think that there's an easy button, there's not going to be an easy socialism button. You're you're just dicking around and you're not serious. And if you want to be taken serious, help do what you can to build these situations. And then there's people like me who say that, but I know I can't build this stuff. I have no idea. Like, I will get instantly overwhelmed. I don't have that ability to get people behind me, and I don't have that ability to plan this stuff out. All I can do is tell you to do these things, and if you're one of those type A people who can do that, do it. And I will fucking be there. I will join. And I will do my part. You tell me what to do, I'll fucking do it. So, you know, but I do have to get going. I do appreciate the talk, and uh, we'll have to have you on again, and we'll talk about the general strike stuff because we got really hampered
we'll
down.
do it.
All right.
Do you mind if I just put my stuff in chat here?
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. Shout yourself out. For those who don't know, this is Oddnon. He does video game streaming, but the main call to fame is he created Horserer, which is a horse sorcerer. It's a comic and graphic novel. Hit him up, follow him on Twitter. All his links will be there, and yeah, just a cool ADHD creator from Michigan who's doing cool shit, and that's very appreciated. All right, man.
Well, thanks for having me.
Of course. Come back anytime.
Shoot you a message later.
All right. Later, bud.
All right. See ya.
Hey, it's Mark and Eli. I hope you're doing well. Hope you liked the video. If you liked it, why don't you like, comment, and subscribe? My child may stop picking on me. Oh!